Hi everyone, Stepan here. I'm going to show you the next game I played, and it was the first round of the Zagreb Cup. It's a team event played on 4 boards, and there were 10 teams competing, I think. So I had 9 possible opponents for round 1. Couldn't really know who I was going to face, because you couldn't calculate that, you didn't know the compositions of the teams. So yeah, I couldn't know who to expect, and I couldn't prepare. And I actually got paired against Svitkovic, an opponent whom I faced in a league game a month before this game. You can find that game on the channel. It was a Benoni game, and I managed to win with the white pieces. And actually, he told me before this game, we were talking, we didn't know we were paired yet, that he is still recovering from that game. And yeah, it was a nice game. So was this one. So we got paired, I had the black pieces, and to be honest, I know something about his repertoire with the white pieces, but I don't know too much. And I've been preparing for him with white myself, so had we had reversed colors, I would have had pretty good prep. In any case, he started d4, which I knew he was going to do, but I had no idea what he does against d4, d5. I knew that he was going to go for mainline stuff, but after this, I had no preparation. Okay, so knight f6, and he played queen c2. And when I saw queen c2, I was really upset, because this modern line in the Slav is something I faced only once before against a very strong player, Novosil, in the European Amateur Championship last summer. You can find that game on the channel. And against Novosil, I was actually expecting this, and I've been preparing. But what usually happens when you only study a line once, and more than a year goes by, or a year goes by, then you don't really know what you're doing anymore. So I remembered some ideas, I remembered some move orders, but I wasn't really too familiar with all of this. In any case, I ended up playing what I played against Novosil. I took on c4, this much I knew, and played bishop f5. The knight went to c3, and I played e6. This is all very standard. Although instead of after bishop f5, I knew g3 was the main move. This much I knew, and on g3 you go e6, and after bishop g2 you go knight bd7. This line I knew, because this is what Lovera and I played. Bishop e7 here, and now knight c3, castles, rook e1, knight e4. So I knew something like that should happen. But when he played knight c3, I wasn't really sure about the move order. So I played e6, he played g3 now, and this knight on c3 is in the way of what I want to do. One of the strategic ideas in this opening is to play knight e4 to prevent e4. Now, of course, with a knight on c3, that has to be calculated precisely, because it's under direct attack. And I ended up playing bishop e7 instead of knight bd7, which it is not a bad move, but it doesn't transpose to the position I know. Now, the reason I wanted to play bishop e7 first is so that against knight e4, he wouldn't have knight h4 ideas in some positions, because it's under double attack. Of course, I should have played knight bd7, and he would have played bishop g2, and after bishop e7, most likely we would have reached the position I knew. So after rook e1, knight e4, this position I know, and now one of the main moves is queen b3, but there are other moves as well. But as I said, bishop e7, not a bad move. It's just that I didn't know the ideas well, or I couldn't remember them. So when he played bishop g2, again, I had 2 possible moves, castles or knight bd7. But at this point, I just couldn't work anything out, and I started panicking about knight e4. And I thought, okay, maybe I should play it here, because the knight is already on c3. What if he moves the knight out to d2 or to h4? So I was really afraid of that. For example, knight bd7, knight h4. I wasn't really sure what to do here. Do I have to give up my bishop pair? What? I mean, can I get away with something like bishop g4? But then he just castles, and I can never play knight e4. So I started being afraid of that. I shouldn't have been. It's those threats don't exist. In any case, I played knight e4, which is a bad move. My opponent played incorrectly against this and gave me a chance to, well, more than compensate for knight e4 for the mistake I'd made. What I should have done is knight e5. And after this, white has a pleasant advantage. After knight c3, queen c3, something like knight d7 and e4. And I actually saw this and I thought it was fine for me. I was going to play knight e5, d5 and bishop g6. I wasn't sure which bishop is worse, but now that you look at the position for a while, it's obvious that mine is worse. And white should have a pleasant advantage here. Of course, the idea is f4 later on. But against knight e4, he played knight h4. And now I played almost instantly, and I played a bad move. I played a move which I decided to play before I played knight e4. And again, doing the same mistake of not double checking the position on each turn or each ply. There was a great move here, knight d6. I completely missed knight d6, and I'm sure he did too, because this is a tempo move and you lose a pawn. I mean, you just lose a pawn as white. So queen b3, and now I simply take. And the engine says equal, but I'm a pawn up. Of course, the bishop on g2 is very strong. I will aim to trade it off. And I still have some development to finish, but d4 is hanging. I mean, after knight h4, I should have seen knight d6, I just didn't see it. Or I wasn't looking for anything because I decided to take, which is bad. White is now very close to strategically winning. After the game, we were analyzing, sort of discussing the game, not analyzing. And he thought I was losing immediately after knight e4, which is probably true strategically if I take on h4 on knight h4. But as I said, we both missed knight d6. The problem with this variation is that he now takes on e4 and has the c5 square for the knight. Now I have an unpleasant choice to make. I can either take on e4 and give him the bishop pair and then go bishop f6, which is very bad for me. He has a very simple plan of b4, b5, undermining my structure and making this bishop very powerful. Or after bishop h4, knight e4, I can go bishop e7, what I did in the game, but now the knight gets to c5. And I'm not really sure which is worse. I mean, this was pretty bad. It was extremely hard to play this position. So my opponent castled, I castled. And after knight c5, I don't know what to do. I have no idea what to do here. There are always patterns of like knight e6. If this bishop moves away, and it is going to move away because e4 is coming. And of course b7 is hanging. So what I should have done is probably bishop c5. And I was expecting dc5, and this is what I was afraid of course, with the idea of bishop f4, rook d1 and rook d6. And I have no way of evicting white's pieces from my dark squares. But after e5, I actually have a fighting chance because I get to fight for d5. And maybe e4 isn't going to be so significant after bishop e6, f6. And maybe something like knight a6, c7, d5. In hindsight, yeah, I should have gone for that. I played queen b6, and now objectively black is just losing. After e4, I have to play bishop g6, and now b3. Now b3 isn't the most precise move. He could have played different moves, but it's good enough. The bishop is getting to this long diagonal. And at this point, I decided to take on c5, which I should have done immediately. If I was going to take, then I might as well not lose the tempo on queen b6, because the queen is misplaced on b6. Instead, I probably should have played rook d8, and after something like b4, maybe I can undermine the position with a5. So he doesn't have to play b4, he can just develop with bishop b2 and then play b4. But yeah, okay, b3, bishop c5, dc5, queen c7, bishop b2 played, and now I thought e5 was my only move because f4 is coming. But it doesn't help, f4 came anyway. And yeah, I mean, I thought about resigning here. I almost did, but I decided to play on. Maybe he makes a mistake. Although this is pretty similar to how I beat him in the league. Once he got his pawns rolling, it was just game over, and the same thing happened in our game. And it was actually these two pawns, so that's pretty funny. E and F pawns won both games. Of course, he won much easier. Like this is, I just put up no fight at all. He took on F4, G4, of course. And for some reason I played King H8 because I was thinking I may have time for F6, Bishop F7. Instead, again losing but better, is Knight D7 and after F5, Bishop H5. But okay, it's all hopeless, it doesn't matter what you do. But King H8 is unnecessary. King H8, F5, Bishop H5 and E5, preparing to play Queen H4. I have nothing to do against that. I can never play G6, of course, because E6 is coming. So I have to give up a piece. I mean, I don't have a way to save the bishop. Maybe I could go Queen E7 trying to prevent Queen H4, but then F6 and I resign. So I just gave the bishop up if he wants to take. He defended the pawn first. He could have played Queen H4. Rook A1, Rook A8, Queen H4. Winning my piece. And now I tried Knight E5. It doesn't do anything, but at least it wins a pawn. Queen takes bishop. And yeah, I actually allowed him a pretty nice finish. Not on purpose, I just didn't know what to do and didn't resign for an unknown reason. It's completely over. I played Knight D3, hoping for a simplification and maybe for a blunder. I just couldn't see what else to do. And he finished brilliantly. Not that it's hard to see this, but white to play and win if you want to pause the video. I actually saw what he was going to do after I played Knight D3. I'd missed it before. So he plays Bishop G7. I have to take. And now Queen G5, King H8 and F6. And that's it. Here I resigned. He actually allowed me to play until mate in our game, so I'm sorry I didn't give him the same courtesy. Of course, if I play something like Rook G8, then he just plays Rook takes Rook, and it's mate in 2, whatever I do. Yeah, I mean, a dreadful game. I don't remember playing a worse game in a long while, and I was just unfamiliar with the position, and I was so afraid that I had to play Knight E4 that I ended up playing it at a very bad moment, an unnecessary moment. And even when my opponent didn't punish me, I just didn't take time to play Knight D6. Now, not as an excuse, but I would like to mention that I had no sleep the previous night, so maybe I would have played better had I been rested, but still, even without sleeping for 3 days, you should at least consider a tempo on the queen. Always look for forcing moves, and in this case it actually not only saves my position but wins a pawn. So yeah, that was pretty bad. Congratulations to my opponent, it was a crushing win. As soon as he won, I told him this was almost as pretty as my game against you. I was joking, I don't know which game is prettier or which one is more crushing. He just destroyed me, blew me off the board. He just used one of my mistakes to build up a strong center and then steamroll me off the board. But yeah, there are going to be more games like this, unfortunately, but hopefully I learn from them and use them not to make the same mistakes again. Thank you for watching. Sorry for the bad game. I hope you got something from it regardless. Stay tuned for more chess. Bye bye.